About time.
I'm the president here at the Heinz History Center. Thank you. It's Kennywood Day here at the History Center, and we're here to celebrate one of America's favorite amusement parks. Kennywood's been making history and countless family memories for over 100 years. The park opened in 1899 during the Spanish-American War, and visitors would come out from the town, which was kind of a smoky city in those days, to enjoy the carousel, rowboats, musical performances, athletic events, and of course, the rides. In 1987, Kennywood was named a National Historic Landmark and one of America's treasures. Today, Kennywood still boasts 3 of the world's oldest roller coasters, along with vintage rides that you all know well. But beyond the rides, Kennywood is most loved for memories. Little ones enjoying Kiddieland, school kids running around on their school's Kennywood Day, and families enjoying a meal on the picnic benches. You've all been there, you know what I'm talking about. Today you can help the History Center launch its newest book, Kennywood, Behind the Screens. It was written by our own editor here at the History Center, Brian Butko, who's a lifelong West Midland resident. You'll hear much more about the book in just a minute, but I'd like to tell you about a partnership between the History Center and Kennywood. The park has recently agreed, thanks to Marie Ruby and others with Kennywood, to donate their rich collections of archives to the History Center. The History Center, yeah, isn't that something? You probably know that the History Center is Pennsylvania's largest history museum and a proud affiliate of the Smithsonian Institution, and it's the oldest cultural institution in Pittsburgh. So it's altogether fitting and proper that this important collection should come here and join other collections like the H.J. Heinz collection, the U.S. Steel collection, the Westinghouse collection, the Alcoa collection. This is Pittsburgh's history. The Kennywood Archives is kind of a who's who. It joins a who's who of history. And as part of this partnership, our curators are researching the park for the possibility of a future exhibition about Kennywood. So we'd like to hear from you. Your memories, maybe your artifacts and photographs could be a part of that upcoming exhibition. Well, I won't talk anymore. We'd like to thank again our partners from Kennywood who are in attendance, and there are many of you. And I'd like to introduce Nick Paradise, Kennywood's Director of Communications.
Afternoon, everybody. Thanks for all coming out here today. It's really cool to see the packed house that we have here. And as you may or may not know, I'm very new to the Kennywood fraternity and Kennywood family. And so, from the get-go for me, I got introduced very quickly to, there's this guy who's writing a book about Kennywood. Like, pretty cool. And that guy, of course, is Brian Butko. And it's been a great professional and personal friendship to get to know him, and he's helped me a ton in my job. I think that I've helped him a tiny bit with the book, and of course we're very excited for the partnership that has begun between the park and the History Center to make sure that our archives are preserved the way that they ought to be, and are there for the people of this area to enjoy a little extra. Of course, the thought of an exhibit here at the History Center involving Kennywood is a really cool thing. But we got a wealth of people that know a ton about Kennywood, from you guys in the audience to these folks over here that are going to come up and speak. And so compared to them, I am not very excited. So I'm going to pass it off pretty quickly here to the man of the hour, why we are all here today, the author of Kennywood Behind the Screens, Pocket Edition, Brian Butko.
Thank you, Nick. Wow, man of the hour. The clock is ticking, I guess. But thank you. I am Brian Butko. I will be your host for the next half hour while we bring on a few other speakers. I won't talk long now. I'll wrap up again with a few comments about what we're doing today and what we have planned for the future. But, my research that involves the park goes all the way back to the earliest years when it was a trolley park, and then 1906 when the Henningers and the McSwiggins bought it. And in fact, I think we have some Henningers here today. Thank you so much for coming by. And descendants of the McSwiggan family, which includes someone that I think you all know and love. I'd like to introduce Andy Quinn. Come on up.
Good afternoon. Brian, I got my assignment on Thursday from Brian. He said, can you take 5 or 10 minutes to tell funny stories? My problem with that is I have 1,000 funny stories from Kennywood. 99.8% of them are not appropriate for this audience. I have just retired from Kennywood this past March, ending my illustrious or notorious career there. I still show up occasionally just to do a little consulting work for them, but I was trying to figure out stories that I could tell that would be appropriate to this audience. And I came up with one. This story happened so long ago. It was my very first day as an employee back in May of 1972. I saw you laugh, Harry. You know where this story's going. Harry Henniger, who was our past chairman of the board, past president, past everything, is in the audience. As I was wondering if he was coming today, because one way or the other, he was going to be embarrassed by this story. It was my very first day. I'm not from Pittsburgh. My family were absent for a couple generations in Kennywood. I happened to go to school just south in West Virginia. Came up here for the summer to work at Kennywood. Day number 1. I get on the PAC bus at bottom of Tennyson Avenue and 5th Avenue in Oakland. I take that bus out to Kennywood. On the way, we were in probably Squirrel Hill from down Murray Avenue. A person got on that bus, and having nothing to read, I just looked at this person, and I said, you know what, I can't determine whether this person is a male or female. Again, this is the early 70s, everybody had long hair. This person had not that long hair, but so for the next 10 or 15 minutes as I'm on the bus going to Kennywood, I am trying to decide whether this person is a male or female. I finally determined that, yes, in fact, by her shoes, this is in fact female. Well, lo and behold, she gets off the bus at Kennywood with me. She's a little ahead of me walking down to the main office where we were instructed to go our first day. As I walked into right behind the main office, I had not met Harry Henniger. I knew who he was, I had not met him prior to this. And with that, I'm standing right behind this young lady, and I hear a voice coming down the hallway, kind of shouting back at somebody else. And this person is not a happy camper at this point in time. He comes around the corner, he looks at the two of us, points to her and says, and by the way, you don't start work here until you get a haircut, because all guys should have long, short hair. She replied in a very feminine voice, but I just got a haircut. At that point in time, Harry Henniger's face turned beet red. That lady will never ever get fired from Kennywood. She could have gone on to be the president. I thank God I only have a couple of minutes. My second story, this is typical of Pittsburghers. I am a Pittsburgher now, I've been here for the last 45 years, so I take a sip. One morning I was walking through the park. Many of you may remember the old floral calendar. They spilled out in the day of May 25th, something like that. I happened to be walking very slowly past the floral calendar, and there were two women standing there. And one woman turns to the next and says, you know what, I wonder how those flowers know what day it is. So that's when I knew I was right at home in Pittsburgh. I always wondered what day it was also. And last but not least, I'm going to leave my cheat sheet because I couldn't remember which story I was going to tell. I learned a lot of Kennywood. I learned how to adapt under pressure. The story I'm going to tell you next is about a Jell-O jump. Now, I was in the food business. My first full-time job at the park was I was a restaurant manager from about 1976 until 1982. In those days, we had a free game, so you could just walk in. And in order to entice people to come in, we used to do radio broadcasts where we'd give away a car, or a Jell-O jump giving away a car. I don't remember what the year was, but I was still in the food business. We were doing a Jell-O jump at that point in time. And my boss and his boss turned to us, the food company, and said, you know what, this is a Jell-O jump, that's food, you guys are charging us it. Now, I've never made Jell-O in my life. I had to make Jell-O enough to fill a dumpster. So we bought a refrigerated truck, we got some unflavored gelatin, and Bill here, who at the time was the president of the refrigerator company, myself, spent the evening before making 55-gallon drums of Jell-O. Now, we didn't have boiling water, which is one of the things you have to have in Jell-O, so it gels. So we didn't know if this stuff was going to gel. We had 180-degree water. We were mixing it in these big 55-gallon trash cans, and we put it on a refrigerated truck. At that point in time, we thought, you know what? We're not sure this is going to gel, so maybe we ought to turn the temperature down to about 35 on the truck, which we did. Next morning, we came in, and luckily it hit gel. Oh, man. No. Got past that bullet. We take it up, we dump it into the big dumpster we had off the lagoon stage. Never realizing the first guy that's jumping into this vat is actually jumping into a vat full of 35 degrees of gelatin. He damn near had a heart attack. The other thing about that story is that there were 96 keys in there. Well, throwing 96 keys into a vat of gelatin is very, very easy. The first 80 guys are going to get them out real quickly, their first 80 people. The last 10 people had to search. We were dumping gel out of those things so we could find all the keys. Luckily, we found all the keys. However, the gel that went into the lake did not dissipate until about October. It just sat in the bottom of the lake forever. So with that, that's all the funny stories I can share with you. If you ever see me in a bar, there's 1,000 more that I can share with you in that bar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andy. I think I'm going to need to add a fourth book to this trilogy of just your stories. Of course, the challenge is finding stories that go back beyond, say, 1950, finding people who still work there or I would call going there. But luckily, one of my good friends, Chris Donahue, said his grandfather remembers all the way back to, I think, 1900 or so. So I'd like to bring out Chris Donahue and his grandpa to give us a little bit of insight.
1900? Come on! How are you? Yeah. He was my boss. How was he? You don't remember. He's a big boss. Whoa! Hey, they reopened the Noah's Ark. Is that where we're all going? No. This is great. What are you looking at? Kennywood's over there. Would you stop? I know you did it. I know you did it. I did it all the time. Oh, this is great. Here, what are we doing here? It looks like they got the Keystone Puff car here. And Hugo Zucchini's cannons back there. Yeah, no, that's not Hugo's. How about those days, huh? Well, those are all good days. What are we doing here? Brian Butko wrote a book. I bet you there's a lot of pictures in it. He did go to West Liverpool, did he? Well, you know what, that's enough for that. Now, it's a book about behind the screens at Kennywood. Screens, that's about all there is at Kennywood. That's all I remember, screens. Why? You grew up the street there, you could hear it all night long. Wow! Anyway, that's a great time to have a good time there. Brian Butko, good job on that book. You're going to get one? I already have one. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And what kind of screens did you hear you were talking about? Well, when I was young, like Brian said back in the day, the Noah's Ark used to have this cool little room that would blow wind up. It would follow the young ladies into there. Okay. So they would scream. One time we screamed. Why? It was Scottish Day. There's another time I'd scream too. What was the other time? Leaving the park, you were sad your mother was taking you home? No, not at all. Not at all. They'd close that park down and start playing this scary music. Yeah. And it would get scarier and scarier. And all of a sudden, one by one, the lights would go out. And my mother would be dragging me fast as light into the tunnel. To the tunnel? Yeah, that's how you got out. They locked the other doors. So you would be screaming. Yeah, because they were playing taps. It scared the living daylights out of me. So, any other times with screaming? No, yeah. Did you ever meet a girl at Kennywood Park? Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. You know, that was a good place to meet ladies, but I was very shy as I was young. Very shy indeed. So you were shy. Yeah. And my friends on school picnic days, they'd go on a Noah's Ark and tell me all the cool stories about how they were making out. But I never did that. You never did? I had to trick them. How'd you trick them? I went into Kennywood and got a peek at some Leos that think they're eating lions. About the size of a cannonball. Well, it was good times though. We had a great time there. Okay. So is there any characters you remember from Kennywood? No, we had all kind of, you know, there was that time that the stage crew, yeah, they tightened up Hugo Zucchini's nets. You remember that little girl that was with Rick Sebak? How you doing, Rick? Remember that little video you made the other time? Where the little boys from Ignatius or something, the altar boys? How about that little girl whose eye movement was going back and forth like crazy? You remember that? She's probably here. Oh, Snodgrass. No, it was the 60s, but you know, I like my deer. So what about her eyes? Well, remember that time about the net with Hugo Zucchini? Yeah, tightened it up too much. He was bouncing around. I looked like that Snodgrass girl, going like this. Those are all good times, folks. So Kennywood was a great place for you. Yeah, indeed it was. We had a good time. There was this little guy who used to walk around. He had a walkie-talkie about the size of a telephone booth. Who was that? I don't remember his name, but he should have just put it around his back. Then there was the guy who always wore a tie that was hanging. He always had a tie on. He's like, look at me, I'm off, look at me. He probably went to sleep at night with that thing on now. So this is great. Brian, this is great. Thank you. There is he. He's hiding behind a pillar. He's a true Steeler fan. He's a Steeler that hides behind a pillar. Okay, we're going to bring him back up there and let you folks enjoy the rest of this fine day. Congratulations, Brian. And I thank you for letting me share it with you. It's been a pleasure. God bless all of you, and I'll see you later. Good night, everybody.
Well, thank you, Chris and Grandpa. You know, Rick Sebak is actually here today, and I don't know if you know his video. It's all become part of Kennywood lore. But I think there were some things that, I don't know if there's a literal cutting room for it, or it's the digital delete or something like that. But Rick has done some of those out for us, so I think we have a nice video treat. So I'd like to introduce Rick Sebak.
Such a gorgeous day today. We should all be at I'm humbled by all of this, especially since Andy Quinn is here, because I don't know if everybody knows, but you know, I started to work at WQED in 1987. When I came for my job interview, I had sent samples of my work, and one of them was a documentary I had made in South Carolina about the state dance. South Carolina has a state dance. It's called the Shag. It's kind of a slow jitterbug that lots of people did at the beach. People in the Carolinas just all know this dance, the Shag. And the woman who was interviewing me for the job, Nancy Lappin, said, we're going to have to find something for you to do here, like Shag. And I said, well, you know, I've always thought we should do a documentary about Kennywood. And she said, ooh, that amusement park. She was from San Francisco, and she had never been to Kennywood. And I said, yeah, you know, I think it's really important to people that grow up here. And she said, well, we'll see. So I was hired in the summer of '87, and to her credit, the next year, at the beginning of the summer, she said, what do you see about that Kennywood thing? And, you know, of course, at the beginning of summer, everyone talks about going to Kennywood. And there were a bunch of the people who worked there at the station. Everybody was all sort of pumped to go to Kennywood. And I said, you know, we're talking about maybe doing something out there. So a bunch of them said, why don't you call out there and see if they'll let us come? So I was lucky enough when I called to get Andy Quinn. I said, my name's Rick Sebak. No one knew what it was. I'd done a couple of shows here, but I said, here at WQED, we think we might want to do a documentary about Kennywood. He goes, that would be great. Why don't you come on up? And I said, how about 12 of us tonight? He said, no problem. And that's how Kennywood Memories began. I also always like to give credit to the title Kennywood Memories. I had seen it in an art gallery on Craig Street in Oakland. There was 3 big paintings by Robert Qualters, the great Pittsburgh painter, and they were called Kennywood Memories 1, 2, and 3. And Nancy Loudon said, well, that's the perfect title for your show, Kennywood Memories. So we interviewed Robert Qualters for the show. It didn't appear in the show because I thought it was odd. It was one of the few things we did that wasn't in the park. We did it at his studio. But he said, you can have that title for sure because I didn't make it up. He said, when I was a kid and you went into the penny arcade, you got these little round discs. And you could, type in things on the disc and then you pressed it, but at the top it said Kennywood Memories. So that's where the title comes from. We do have a lot of stuff, obviously, that didn't make it into the show. And I think we have some of them here. Let's start it because there's this music under, the first part there's no talking. I will stop talking at some point so you can hear some of the footage we shot that wasn't used. My editor, Kevin Conrad, who's worked at QED for 40 years, helped me put this together this week. Maybe. Kennywood for Butko.
Well, man, I'm heading for hard. Let's all go down to the amusement park. Some more. Let's go. Come on. Out to the park where the gang has the ball on the way. Forward, let's go to Kennywood.
So some of this stuff was in the show, but a lot of it was not. And I always like to tell the story that all that summer, we shot at Kennywood for 22 days in the summer of 1988. And I bet half of those days I would ask people, have you ever seen any old movies? No, don't know any old movies. Because I figured if they didn't have them, no one would. And literally, it may have been the last day or the next to last day, I was with Ann Hughes, who was the PR director at the time, and we were walking, like from the office building up to what is now Johnny Rockets, and I was saying, Ann, please, if there's some way you can ask everybody who works here about the movies, because there have to be some old movies. And a gardener overheard me asking, and he said, Ann, I know where the movies are. They're in the basement of the office in 2 old big boxes. And so we immediately went over there, and there were a lot of these great, great old movies which, made the show. I put them in the back of my car, and some of them were on 35 millimeter, which we didn't have any way to look at WQED. We could look at 16 millimeter, but not 35 millimeter film. And much of this is 35 millimeter. And we went out to McNeely Road in Castle Shannon to look at it at a guy that did films for the Steelers. And when we carried the stuff up there, he said, I remember, it goes, everybody put your cigarettes out. People still smoke them. And he said, there's nitrate film here. So there's a very explosive, for instance, this was probably on nitrate film, which is very explosive and caused a lot of fires in old movie theaters and stuff. And then we had to figure out what to do with it because no one wants to hold it. It's a hazardous material. And we got a company in New Jersey to transfer the films, and they transferred them with the stipulation that they would keep it because they had facilities to keep old nitrate film. And we could use it, and Kennywood could use it for as long as they wanted. So these are just some of those images. I mean, you know, depending on your age, you remember different things from Kennywood. And we were surprised. There's a guy on this ride that we noticed is in some of the other movies. I don't know if he knew somebody at Kennywood or if he worked at Kennywood. But there's all kinds of things. And of course, we were done shooting, so we didn't have this for inspiration. But we have a lot of stuff that we shot that is also still in boxes. Oh, and this guy who kisses the bear, we should have used this in the show. I think the bears are roller skating in Kennywood Memories. But they're kissing some man there. All the stuff that we shot, I mean, including many interviews that we never used, just with, if you shoot for 22 days, which now seems really luxurious, you shoot more than enough for an hour-long documentary. People always ask me, when are you going to do another Kennywood Memories? And I said, I probably never will, because who could like the second one as much as people love the first one? And I always thought that maybe we could go back and get some of the other stuff from 1988 and put together another show. And the Supreme Court rockets. Actually, I mentioned Robert Palters. You hear his voice at the beginning of Kennywood Memories when he talks about the rockets. And certainly this is one of my memories, picnics in the picnic groves. My grandmother would always make a picnic. So what we've done here is, in working with Big Paradise, trying to find out, you know, stuff about the whale and the revival of the whale. We found some old Noah's Ark footage, and I brought that with me today too. So once we go from black and white to color here, I'll stop talking so you can hear the audio on our footage from 1988. So many great images. I thought, I'll talk through it, but people probably say, shut up, let us watch. Here's the old entrance to the other. I thought they should bring this back too. Just a nice old pan across the midway there. I said, Kevin, why'd you put this? He said, you'll see. The end. So we are here to get a copy of Brian's new book. But they've been nice enough to put a stack of Kennywood Memories over there. If you don't already have one, you might consider getting one today. And I brought these along as an incentive. If you buy a copy of Kennywood Memories today, these are almost gone. But this is the poster from Great Old Amusement Parks, which we did for PBS. And this is honest to God how I always remember which year we did things. I look for the copyright. So this is from 1999. And this is the Jack in the Box from Idlewild. Really nicely distorted by one of our graphic artists, Sue McConnell at QED. It's one of my very favorite posters. So we have a handful of them. If you get in line to get Brian's book, and I'll be sitting there too, apparently, and you can get a poster if you buy a copy of Kennywood Memories. If you already have one, you can get one as a present for somebody. And I always like to ask a trivia question and give a prize, okay? To reward people for useless information that we all carry around. I'm wearing the strip today when I'm at Kennywood, so I thought maybe I could ask my favorite Lawrenceville question, because in some city things, Lawrenceville and the strip are considered together, and we're not far from Lawrenceville. Lawrenceville, you know, is a planned community. It was laid out in 1814 by Colonel William Foster, who was trying to convince the federal government to build an arsenal there. And part of the deal with attracting an arsenal was you had to say that there would be people to work at the arsenal. And so he decided there was this land just outside of downtown Pittsburgh where he could, you know, plot out a town. He plotted out the streets and all of that. And he was a real estate developer and politician. He would eventually become the mayor of Allegheny City when the north side was a separate city called Allegheny. He was also the father of Stephen Foster, the composer. So Colonel William Foster laid out and named Lawrenceville. This is in 1814. He had an event in which he was going to announce all his plans and show off, you know, the maps and everything. And lots of people thought he would call this development Fosterville. But he surprised everyone by calling it Lawrenceville, after a naval hero of the War of 1812, Captain James Lawrence. We all know Captain James Lawrence for something else, not because Lawrenceville was named for him, not because Lawrence, Kansas is named for him, not because Lawrence County by Newcastle. Newcastle is the county seat of Lawrence County, also named for Captain James Lawrence. He's famous for something else, and that's my question. Please raise your hand if you know the answer. Why does everyone in America know Captain James Lawrence? He's not a Pittsburgher. He doesn't have a real Pittsburgh connection. But Lawrenceville is named for him. So why does everyone in America know Captain James Lawrence, naval hero of the War of 1812? Anyway.
How about the Seaway?
Yes, ma'am.
How about the Seaway?
The Seaway, St. Lawrence Seaway. No, that's not right, but it's a good guess. I'll tell you a clue is he died. Yes?
Is he the guy that said you may fire when ready, Ridley?
I'm sorry?
Is he the guy that said you may fire when ready, Ridley?
Is he the guy who said fire when...
Fire when ready, Ridley.
Fire when ready. No, but you're on the right track. He died. Anyway, Captain James Lawrence. Yes?
Don't give up the ship.
Don't give up the ship is exactly right. He said, don't give up the ship. He was actually off the coast of Cape Cod in New England. Wasn't even near here, but we know him here. And I thought in the year of, you know, the revival of Noah's Ark, it was a good thing. So I have a prize for you. I brought two, because I'll give you a choice. I was really happy this year. PBS put out a new compilation of my old shows. It's called Rick Sebak Summer Fun. It has great old amusement parks, hot dogs, shore things, and an ice cream show, all on one disc. So you can have that if you want, or you can have the original pressing of great old amusement parks, which, if you like the old movies, does have the Westinghouse Day at Kennywood in 1941, which is one of the most beautiful color movies. So you have your choice. Very good. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Rick. You'll be either honored or shocked to know that among the many artifacts we have here today is one of the original Kennywood Memories VHSs, still in its original shrink wrap. So that's what, as time goes by, that's what becomes an artifact. So that'll be on the desk, and you and I will be over there after this event signing. But we still have a few minutes to go before that, and I won't get into many details. We'll save that for another time, perhaps do this again in next year or so. But first, I wanted to say how honored I am to see so many of you here. So many of you who just a few years ago I didn't know, and now I consider good friends, definitely so many Facebook friends. And when I started this journey, I'm a lifelong West Mifflin resident. And I was researching trolley parks 25 years ago, and my dad at the time said, Brian, you probably ought to write a book about Kennywood. And in my youthful wisdom, I said, Dad, it's already been done. Of course, there are Charlie Jackway's books and Dave Honor, and I don't want to go through everyone thanking you. I owe so many thanks, but I do want to mention Dave Honor, whose book on Kennywood came out 10 years ago, who by all rights had no need or reason to help me, a new author coming along, but he's been nothing but gracious, same with his wife and son, offering help at any time, day and night. So I want to give Dave Honor a round of applause. We're selling this book here today too, and speaking of 24 hours, for this book we had more than a dozen proofreaders. We went through almost 20 drafts, and so as a writer that's somewhat embarrassing, but as an editor I'm quite thankful. And I want to mention even people like my brother Kevin. I would get a text at 3 in the morning because he said he dreamed of, it occurred to him in the middle of the night, something in the index wasn't spelled the same as something in the text. So people like him and so many of you, including Liz Simpson, our assistant editor, who's back there guarding some of the artifacts that have started coming. Kennywood has been graciously donating some artifacts to the History Center, along with the archives that Andy Basic mentioned, and we'll mention again here in a minute. So I just wanted to quickly mention a few things that may interest all of you. The cover of the book there, you've seen. One of my obsessions was finding color images from the past, and that's easier said than done. When it gets to about the 1990s, we were still using black and white film, so I was trying to find things like the auto ride, the Kitty Cadillacs that so many of us remember riding, Laugh in the Dark. And this is one of the things that so many people like my older brother and sister would mention, rides like Laugh in the Dark, that I just couldn't picture. And that's really one of the things that inspired me to do the book, to go to each location, and of course the skyrocket that's here, and the turnpike, Laugh in the Dark. And to me, that's what really was exciting to me, and I hope is what a lot of you find interesting. But the next book, I'm doing 3 of them, as if one book wasn't enough for one person. The next book on Luna will be completely different. It's much more the story of the early trolley parks. But before you think that's old and dry history, it is one of Pittsburgh's greatest stories. And I won't get into much of it today, except to say that many of you know that Luna Park, and especially the entryway, was some of the inspiration for Lost Kennywood that we have now. But back then, when Frederick Ingersoll built it here, he really wanted to recreate Luna Park from Coney Island here. And he was trying for every spot that he could in town. He was a Pittsburgher, and you'll find out the amazing things about him. But where he ended up, 2.5 miles east of here, was the estate of Annie Aspinwall, who was apparently one of the most eccentric people in all of America at the time. When she, and Aspinwall, that's where her fortune came from, going all the way back to when they rented some of their land so little Henry Heinz could grow horseradish on their land. So she was wealthy, but her house, 2.5 miles east of here, when she donated some money to a local hospital, she was inundated with requests for more donations. So she decided to pack up, take a steamer to England. On that ship, she fell and died, and so her estate was sold. And she would have been shocked to find out that her home that she had been living in when Frederick Ingersoll came along and built this as Luna Park. Right there's her house, and it was turned into the infant incubators part of Luna Park. And you can see all the other crazy attractions here. So Frederick Ingersoll, he was building parks around the world, and at the same time he was in bankruptcy court the whole time. So it all intertwines together, along with the story of the development of the East End, where within a year of this closing it would be part of Automobile Road. So we have a lot of great photos of that, but we also have some of Pittsburgh's cartoonists and illustrators who are going to be helping us illustrate us. So I think today we have someone here, Marcel Walker, some of you may know these names, Mark Zingarelli, Rob Grice, Wayno, some of you know these people and names. So they're walking around here, and if you want to say hi to them, and then we'll be meeting them along the way as they help illustrate the Luna story. Again, it won't just be Luna, it will be early Kennywood. And you're thinking, oh, those early days, the Victorians in their proper dress, going for tea on Kenny's Grove. But in fact, it's quite different than that. If you were going to Kenny's Grove, it was kind of like going to a dance club at the time, today's dance club. That's where people went to drink, to gamble, to brawl, and we'll be recording on all that, all the way back to, as we say, Kenny's Grove. And you know, one of the things along with color images, I'm trying to find early Kennywood tickets. It's pretty hard before 1950, except in our own library and archives here, we have this great ticket to Kenny's Grove from 1885. So that's what some of the fun I get to do in my job every day. As Andy Masick mentioned, though, we now have all of Kennywood's archives here. And this was Library and Archive staff a month ago packing it up, and on the right here, John Caldelli, who I think is here, and we all packed it up in one day. It actually is here now. This is just part of it at the History Center. So it's not actually instantly accessible because that's everything put into boxes. First thing it has to do is be unboxed, but out of frame of this picture is all the work going on around it to build all this new shelving to bring things in, and then also an exhibit is being built just 3 feet past that. So it's not accessible yet. It's going to take a while, and then the long-range plan, even so, once it's out of boxes, you can use it. But the long-range plan is to actually conserve it, document it, put it in folders so when people are searching for it, they can actually go to that exact, they'll know the exact folder that everything's in. But as I understand from John Paul, all that work, staff time, and preserving, and they want to digitize it. So years from now, you'll be able to go online, and a great deal of that, just like Historic Pittsburgh is, if you use that site, you'll be able to actually access a lot of these things online. But that's, I think I heard the estimate, $50,000 to $100,000. So when people think that bringing archives here, if that's the end of the story, that's just the beginning for staff here. They put in an awful lot of time and effort to do all that. So it's exciting that that part of its life never started. I wanted to finally mention the third book we're doing, is the Ride All Day edition of Behind the Screens. And it will be like the Pocket Edition in that it will be a walking tour, but a little bit different. It's for all you real Kennywood fanatics. It's going to be all those drawings and blueprints and the way that the park came about, and some of the ways that didn't happen. The entrances that were meant to be in other parts of the park, rides that never came to be. So it's going to be a pretty fun 2 years, and I invite you all to come along with me, and just a couple images from it. Here, for example, we'll be going behind the scenes to see some of the work that's done in the shops, some of the blueprints, and I especially like this evolution here because you all know the train station, and then there's this drawing of it. and then this on the left, the sketch of it. And I really like this little hand-drawn note. It's almost like on a napkin, a la Disney, it says. So the ways that things were formed, so your longtime employees, family, I'll probably be bothering you endlessly for the next 2 years with questions. We'll have many of the drawings. I think you all know what ride the castle ride turned into. So there's just so much of this out there in the archives, in the History Center archives, even before we got at the parks. And then I know a lot of the collectors have so many things. Of course, we'll have some great photos for that too, enlarged to, I think our pages will be 12 by 10 inches. And there's like a show that the final result from that drawing. And we'll have great views that you've never seen of rides like the Turnpike. Signs, and this is my all-time favorite childhood memory, the firework that the chaser balls went. And then there was a second pause, and then a tough, wide-eyed 5-year-old when that neon exploded. So if we can't have the real thing reproduced, there must be somebody out there that can do a graphic online for us, right? If not, let's see how we can rebuild the real thing. Let's dream big. And then we'll go much like the current book, Back in Time. So this area that has come to be known as Kennywood, there it is right when the display stand, one of my early memories, was the display that was in what became the potato pad. This is right at the point where apparently it was going to be a fried chicken stand at the last minute. The idea for the French fries came along. And when we go back in time, I think this is 1966. We have lots of aerials that you haven't seen before. I love that the 1949 Art Deco picnic station is peeking out there at the far left of that same area. And then when we go even further back, and I think I saved one of my favorite photos of all time for last, that same area in full glorious color. So thank you all for coming along on the journey, and it's going to be a couple more fun years. 2 last directions I have for you. Anyone who wants to buy any of the books, including Dave Warner's or mine, Caroline has directed us to go, and with hand directions, sort of in a big loop around that way, around, oh yeah, and we will pass the long distance award. I know all of you came from all over the county, but one of my friends came all the way, Jimmy Torque from Bangkok, to be here today. I have a feeling it's probably coming to Pittsburgh anyways, but I'm honored that it's probably the all-time long distance award for one of my talks. Go a big loop around to the register, and then there's some artifacts, and then Rick and I will be sitting there. And then in about 5 minutes, once that all gets going, we have a treat for you that we'll repeat a few times. It is a 10-minute video that I just unearthed of the Luna Fantastic show that was in the Lost Kennywood part of Kennywood with, I think, so it's done in old, 25-year-old video, but it's got the volume to it too, so I don't know how we'll be able to hear the story of Bob and the monster and all that. So again, thank you all very much, and I'll forward to the rest.